Hey guys, Chris Godinez. Welcome to We Need to Talk with Chris Godinez. I am on the road. I am traveling. I am at my nephew's house, and I'm hoping that his Wi-Fi is going to survive the show. Anyway, let me do the disclaimer. So this video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, Psychology Today will pop up. It will have all of the therapists in your area. If the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone, they do not represent the ACA or any other therapist for that matter. So, boom. So, all right. So today's topic is self-esteem, shame, style, attachment style, and how to make yourself bulletproof from an abuser. So let's talk about that. So what I am discovering as I do this, as I work with survivors of abuse, is that, and not just survivors of abuse, but with a lot of issues that come in and sit on my couch, there's a great deal of shame involved. Why? How? Wow. It has to do with attachment style. It has to do with parenting style. It has to do with a whole lot of stuff. So when someone has been subjected to abuse, when someone has been tormented, hurt, harmed, treated poorly, etc., they oftentimes get a lot of shame instilled into them. So we're going to have to kind of go back before we can go forward. So let's talk about attachment style, because I think that's a really important thing to talk about. So there's different styles of attachment. And what do I mean by that? I mean how you were when you were a kid. So if you had a secure attachment, mom and dad were relatively, and realize everything is on a relative stage here, relatively normal, and you felt secure and you felt loved, you are less likely to either A, get involved with an abuser, or B, stay with an abuser. Why? Because your sense of who you are is grounded. It is secure. It is solid. It is on solid ground. You know who you are. You love who you are. You know you're loved by family and friends. You know that you will find love even if this relationship breaks up, and you're not susceptible to the emotional manipulations that an abuser does. And in fact, when an abuser starts trying to manipulate and starts trying to shame you, you are able to, if you have a secure attachment, kind of go, you know what? This is abuse. I'm not putting up with it. Bye-bye. And you have no problem punting that person out of your life. If, however, you have an insecure attachment style and you are terrified of abandonment. So for example, you had a parent that was absent for whatever reason. They were in jail. They were dead. They were gone. They were, whatever. They're not there. You don't have that secure attachment. Or you had a parent that was mentally ill and could only give you security every once in a while, thereby setting up the intermittent positive rewards. Sound familiar to anybody? That becomes very common and comforting to that insecure attachment style, because that's what they're used to. And abusers frickin' know that, and they exploit that like nobody's business. So the other thing that will happen too is if a child has, hi Tonya, how are you doing? Thank you. If the abusers have, if you have an insecure attachment style and you're a child and your parent leaves for whatever reason, your parent dies, they are in jail, they're gone, whatever, kids automatically assume that it's them, that somehow they did something to create the parent being gone. In other words, they are very egocentric, but not in a narcissistic way. So in other words, kids have a lot of magic thinking, and so they think that somehow it is something they did, that there is something inherently wrong with them that caused the parent to go away. It may not even be conscious. This could be a totally unconscious thing that the kid is doing, but abusers know this, and they will exploit that wound. They will exploit that original wound, which is why I'm always saying, super important that you work on whatever your attachment style is, and you work on whatever that original wound is. So if you had an absentee parent, if you had a very insecure attachment style, if you find yourself in a series of very dramatic relationships, you've probably got an insecure attachment style, which also means you've got very, very low self-esteem. So I blame myself for my dad dying. I should have hidden his tobacco pipe Oh, Bunny. Yeah, we do that. We absolutely do that. And kids will do that. Kids will say, it's my fault. It's my fault. It's my mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, even though they don't understand really that it's not their fault because you're a kid. They're an adult. They made a choice. And even if you had hid the tobacco, he still probably would have kept smoking and found another way to find it. So, oh yeah, that's exactly what we do. We blame ourselves for the absenteeism of our parent. So what ends up happening is an abuser finds that and they start exploiting that. And they will tell us lies like you would not believe. So Helen, if I may use your example, what they'll do is, let's say that that is a sticking point and the abuser knows that. The abuser will go on to lie to you and say, well, yeah, absolutely, it was your fault. Well, yeah, absolutely, you should have stopped him from smoking. And yeah, you're right. You're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's what an abuser does because they know that that is our deepest, darkest, greatest fear. Basically, we are only as sick as our deepest, darkest, greatest fear. Keep that in mind. So, and that's why it's super important to start exposing these things. And this is what happens with us is shame. So we get this huge amount of shame and we start covering up that original wound because we think we're somehow responsible for it. We feel ashamed and we start feeling less than, and we start making assumptions about ourselves that are not true. Absolutely not true. Another question coming up. Okay, yes, I definitely feel this completely. I was detached from both of my parents growing up, and I feel that this has led to my low self-esteem. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because where do we learn our self-esteem from? Well, we learn it from watching our parents. And if our parents are like not there mentally, if they're not there physically, we don't ever learn how to love ourselves unconditionally and how to have compassion for ourselves unconditionally. In a lot of families, especially if there's drug and alcohol abuse, or if there's physical domestic violence abuse going on, there's a lot of conditional love and not a whole lot of unconditional love. So you couple that with a insecure attachment style, and then you get the low self-esteem, and then there's no role modeling for how to love yourself. There's no role modeling for how to be unconditionally loved, or how to unconditionally love, or how to have compassion for the self and others. And yeah, that's going to be a really tough row to hoe. So shame starts building, and abusers know this. So what ends up happening is it becomes very, very difficult for targets of abuse to actually seek help because they're afraid. They're afraid of the answer. They're afraid that, oh my gosh, yes, it is me, but it never is. So, don't worry about that. Question. When I finally broke it off with my abuser, she sent me an email with all the reasons based on my childhood, things I had told her about why I wasn't able to handle her abusiveness. Yes. Shaming, twisting, rewriting history, making it so that you're bad, you're wrong, you're this, you're that, you. The you guns is what I like to call them. So that's what abusers do, and they exploit that shame. So this goes back to, how do I explain this? So when you're being abused, the abuser will do the love bombing, right? So they bomb, love bomb, love bomb, love bomb. You're great, you're fabulous, you're my twin flame, you're my everything, you're my soulmate, we were meant to be, blah, blah, blah. And they insist on emerging almost immediately. So it's like, it's not unusual to see people get together with an abuser within, a week or two, a month or two, and suddenly it's boom, it's this love bombing. Well, initially they're building up the ego. Okay, we're going to get to ego in a minute. So initially they're building up the ego, but then what they start doing is they start mining us for information. They're looking for those shame-filled things from childhood and previously to use against us later. So I have seen abusers take somebody's sexual history, for example, demand to know everything about their sexual history. Who did you sleep with? How many people did you sleep with? When did you sleep with them? How often did you sleep with them? Blah, 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 blah. It's none of their damn business. You are under no obligation to tell whoever you're dating, who you're sleeping with or whatever. The only thing you're obligated to tell them is if you have a disease. And that's just ethically the right thing to do. And you should go get, medicine for that. But the point being is that abusers will mine their victim, their target, for as much information from their past that they can then use later on to shame them. So let me pull this article out. I want to talk about this. So a lot of people confuse if they have an insecure attachment style, they confuse love bombing with real love. And they confuse the things that the abuser does with real love. So hold on just a second. I'm pulling this from counseling today. Shame, shame, shame. Uncovering the presence of shame in the therapy session. So bullied into shame, the practice of actively shaming others, particularly through bullying behavior or abusive behavior, happens often. The bullying can trigger feelings of shame, leaving people feeling defenseless, embarrassed, and confused. That's exactly what abusers do to us. There's such a strong sense of self-consciousness, and they become so preoccupied with avoiding the shame-inducing situations that they even withdraw from others, which can lead to an excruciating form of isolation, self-isolation. Remember, I talked about that the other day. Another question, this person who sexually abused me was my mother's boyfriend. My mother took his side, oh, honey, and never believed me. This led me to be further detached from my mother. This detachment has haunted me throughout my life. I feel as I will never find closure. Okay, you're not going to find closure necessarily with her, but you can find closure with yourself. And remember, there really is no such thing as closure. So it's kind of more acceptance kind of thing. But I'm going to get back to that. And if I don't, please, pop in and say, hello, Chris, we're going to get back to that. So abusers love to make us believe their version of who we are. So remember, they are projecting who they are, and who they are is not pretty. Who they are is cruel and vicious and mean and sarcastic and not kind and not nice and not anything. And they insist that we start believing their version of who they think we are, which is really their version of who they are. So they force us to hold up a broken mirror to our face, and that mirror is cracked and it's got shards of glass missing, and it's like a funhouse mirror, and they insist that that's who we are. So imagine holding a broken mirror to yourself, believing that distorted image is what you truly look like. And that's what abusers do to us. This is how they shame us, and this is how they get us to believe this stuff. Your perception is totally off. Now imagine you were holding a broken mirror that reflects a distorted image of who you are as a person. If you believe this distortion, it won't be easy to feel good about yourself or to connect with other people who truly love you. And the abuser knows that. And that's why they try to get you to not like yourself, to try to make you believe that you will never be loved by anybody else, that no one will understand you like they do, that they are the sole source of all physical contact, of all mental contact, of all emotional contact, that they are the only ones that have the answers. That is why they try to isolate you, so that they can shove their projection of who they are onto you and make you feel bad about yourself, and it makes you more easily controlled. The projection was the worst part. Awful. How do they do that? How do they not know they are describing themselves? Ego defense, ego defense, ego defense. You're explaining it as a very conscious, deliberate act by the abuser. Can an abuser be acting and put awareness of what they're doing? Can abusers be acting without awareness of what they're doing, but be acting unconsciously, believing their own twisted version of reality honest? I firmly believe that abusers know what they're doing. I do. It may not be 100% conscious, but come on. You know when you're hurting somebody. You know when you're lying. Because, Jiminy Cricket, when that's going on. I don't give abusers a pass. Some humanists love to give abusers a pass. I don't. I'm sorry. Everybody on the face of the planet knows when they're hurting somebody. Even psychopaths know when they're hurting somebody. They just don't effing care. So yeah, I do believe they absolutely know what they're doing. And if they don't know consciously, they know from experience. So in other words, they have learned over time that their manipulations work. So for example, if you have an abuser that comes up and demands that all your friends like them because, I've had it happen that if the friends didn't like them, the relationship didn't work. Well, obviously they've had that situation before. And so they're trying to prevent the target of abuse from leaving because previous experience has taught them that they need to have the family and friends on their side, flying monkeys. But if the family and friends are savvy to abuse, they're never going to like them. So, now that's a whole nother ball of wax. I'm improving. The last guy who treated me that way, I recognized it. Yes! And told him where to go. Oh, Catherine, Solid. Good for you. Good for you. Can they be acting unconsciously, unaware of what they're doing? No. They believe their own version of reality 110%, even though their version of reality is completely distorted. But like I said, even psychopaths know when they are harming somebody. So I don't believe that they are unconscious in any way, shape, or form. I think there might be a part of them that's unconscious, but no, you know when you're hurting somebody. Okay. So they try to make us not, it makes it harder for us to connect with people that love us. So in other words, the abuser creates this shame inside of us, tells us that we're horrible, awful, terrible people. And remember, it comes from an insecure connection to begin with, an insecure attachment style. So there's a part of us that already believes that. The abuser just comes in and just works that open wound wide open. And then it makes it harder for the targets of abuse to accept the love of family and friends, because the abuser is constantly going, you, it's you, this is who you really are, this is who you really are. And we start believing it because we hear it so many times. It's repetition. That's why they repeat. That's why they repeat. That's why they repeat. So, okay. So, okay. All right. So that is the shame part of it. So this is how they get us to do this. Now, let's talk a little bit about love bombing. So toxic people, and I'm pulling this from Psychology Today, toxic people, how to deal with them. So toxic behavior doesn't just inflict hurt, it assaults systematic well-being, prompting us to believe that it reflects how all others see us. So eventually the target of abuse will believe that everybody sees them the same way that the abuser does, and that's simply not the truth. The family and friends who truly love the person know who the person is, and they know that they're not this way. And, you know, but the abuser keeps going, no, you're really snarky, you're really sarcastic, you're really cruel, you're really this, you're really that. And the target of abuse starts acting in kind. They do that identifying with the aggressor thing in order to overcome their fear. Okay, so the love bombing phase. So now we're going to slide into a little bit of talk about addiction. So when somebody's got an insecure attachment and they've got shame, and the abuser comes along and initially love bombs, love bomb, love bomb, love bomb, love bomb, they are flooding the system with all sorts of chemicals. And I talked a little bit about this last week. So the oxytocin, the endorphins, the dopamines, the norepinephrines, all of that good stuff. And so it leaves you feeling euphoric and drawn to your new love as if they were a drug. Now, how the abuser gets us stuck in that is that they start doing the intermittent positive rewards. So in other words, they've got us hooked now. It's kind of like it's that old joke, first one's free. So the love bombing phase, first one's free. You know, there's no payment at the end of that necessarily, because they're love bombing. Now that they've got you, that's when the mask slips and they start the devalue discard phase. That causes the target of abuse to release oxytocin like nobody's business, trying to reconnect with that person. And then when the abuser, you know, pats them on the back, gives them a little bit of love, whatever, oh my gosh, they love me, everything's great. And you get flooded again with all of those feel-good chemicals. It truly is like being addicted. Also from Psychology Today, the law of attraction. This is where I'm getting all my stuff, guys. This is like, you know, lots of studies have been done on this. So it is exactly like being addicted. So, all right. So abusers know this and they work it to their advantage. So what happens is that we have so much shame and we have so much fear going on that we allow the abusers to get into our heads and start basically playing mind games with us. And we no longer have a sense of who we are. We have adopted now their version of who we are. And that harms us because now we're not believing our family and friends who tell us that they love us, because now we're saying things to ourselves like, but I don't deserve to be loved, but I'm not a good person, but I'm really this, but I'm really that, and I'm da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And we start pushing away the very people that we really truly need to be having in our lives, because the abuser is holding up a funhouse mirror, and a broken one at that, and telling us that, you know, their version of who we are is who we are, and it's not. So self-esteem is hard to come by, but not impossible. So this is what I want you guys to wrap your heads around. If you have had abuse, and if you have had low self-esteem, and if you have had a very tenuous connection, an insecure connection, it is difficult to work on your self-esteem. Why? Well, because the voice inside of our head starts talking to us and is not nice to us. And it starts vomiting back what the abuser has told us or what our caregiver has told us. So remember, we all talk to ourselves. Every single person on the face of the planet talks to themselves, with maybe the exception of sociopaths, and they might talk to themselves, but they don't care what they're saying. So we all talk to ourselves. If our internal dialogue is healthy, it's like a cheerleader. It's like, go you, you're fabulous, I love you. Oops, you fucked up. Okay, did you make amends? You did. Okay, good. Forgive yourself, move on. So it's kind, it's gentle, it's nice. It's like the good voice in your head, okay? If it is healthy. If this thing is not healthy, then it is going to be your worst freaking enemy. This thing is going to be like, oh my God, why did you say that? Oh my God, you're so stupid. How could you do that? Da, 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 da. Or it'll start spitting out stuff that the abuser has said. You're going to die alone. Nobody's going to love you. Nobody wants you. Nobody will want you the way your abuser wants you. You need to stay with them. Blah, 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 blah. And it'll start thinking very oddly. It'll give you weird thoughts. It'll give you thoughts that are not true and thoughts that will lead you to mistaken beliefs, mistaken thoughts. This is where CBT comes in. So oftentimes what I find is that targets of abuse suffer from the time investment fallacy. Okay, time investment fallacy is, I have spent so much time with this person, I would be stupid to leave now because what if, the magic what if they change? What if it gets better? What if I give up on them and they suddenly get better? And what if? But I've spent so much time with them, but I've invested so much emotional, energy in them, I should stay. Okay. This is where I tell my clients at this point, I ask them, it's like, okay, have you ever invested money? Okay, what do you do when an investment stops giving you a return? Do you keep throwing more and more and more money in it, hoping that at some point it's suddenly going to start returning? Or do you stop investing in that and maybe go invest in something else? The smart move would be to stop investing and go and move and invest in something else. You move your funds around. That's what people do. But they suffer from the time investment fallacy of thinking in that, but I've already put all this into it. Well, I should do this. I should do that. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. You're shooting all over yourself. It's a mental masturbation. It's a mental mind fuck. That's all it is. And you're convincing yourself to stay in. Yes, it does sound like gambling. It absolutely does. You're convincing yourself to stay in an abusive relationship because you're not thinking clearly, because you have that abuser who may or may not still be in your life. And if they're in your life, you're still getting that reinforcement of not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. But if they're not in your life, that tape is still running in your head somewhere. So that's why you've got to start challenging that thought. So we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay, so thoughts in your head, fallacy. So the distorted thinking, the cognitive issues. So in other words, a healthy person with a healthy self-esteem and a healthy attachment will recognize that true love does not involve isolating somebody. True love does not involve control and manipulation. True love does not involve making sure that somebody is no longer doing the thing that they love because the person's threatened by it. True love is not about controlling someone. It is not about isolating them. It is not about, and a person with a good attachment style will have a good enough self-esteem to go, yeah, I'm being controlled and I'm not playing. I'm not interested. I don't want to do this. No, thank you. But somebody with an insecure attachment style will be led by fear, and they will be led by thoughts like, oh my God, I'm going to die alone. Oh my God, I can't leave this person. Nobody else will ever love me. I need to stay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's simply not true. But because they haven't learned to trust themselves, and because they've got that insecure attachment style, and because the abuser has shoved away any family and any friends that actually do have a secure attachment style, the person who's being targeted by the abuser is having a really, really hard time getting it together enough to leave them because of the fallacy in thinking and the fallacy in logic. And it's that cognitive distortion that causes a lot of problems because they can't see who they really are. And when somebody, family or friends, tries to say, yes, you're worthy of being treated well, immediately that voice in their head goes, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. I deserve this. I need to settle. I need to, blah, 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 blah. So that's the fallacy in thinking. And that is why targets of abuse generally have an insecure attachment style. Very rarely will you see somebody with a healthy, secure attachment style either get into an abusive relationship or stay in an abusive relationship. But somebody with an insecure attachment style, yes, will get into an abusive relationship because the abuser probably has an avoidant, dismissive attachment style. And those are usually narcissists. And they really don't want a intimate relationship, but they want a relationship so that it's like a prize. Look at who I have on my arm. Look, I'm in a relationship. That means I'm worthy. Look, I'm, that kind of thing. But they don't ever really get intimate, and they don't ever really get emotionally close because they can't. They don't have that ability. They're dismissive. They're avoidant. They're pushing people away. So they feed, though, on the attachment style that is insecure. That is the type of person that they go for all the time. And what happens in an insecure attachment style is very often their relationships will be drama-filled and very chaotic and very, touch and go kind of thing. Lots of intermittent positive rewards from the family of origin, which then sets them up to be with an abuser who mimics the family of origin. And it feels comfortable and it feels safe, but it's really not, because it's abuse. Because, like I said, a secure attachment style can tell that, demanding that you give up family and friends or a hobby that you love, or, devaluing somebody or putting them down or rewriting history or any of that, that's abuse. That is absolutely abuse. And a secure attachment style would recognize that and say, yep, nope, not playing. So how can we start working on that? Okay, so we have this internal dialogue that's making it very, very difficult for us to acknowledge that we are worthy in the first place. And Richie and I have talked about this before, and Richie actually mentions it in one of his videos. He talks about how it's really hard to get somebody who's been long-term abuse to be able to do mirror work, because that's almost asking too much of them because of the voice in the head going, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, how dare you, blah, 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 the shame, 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 shame. So he suggests starting off small. Do little things to start working on your self-esteem. And I think that is the key. I think that getting in with a good therapist, a really good therapist who understands abuse and who understands abuse syndrome. A group of therapists want to call it narcissistic abuse syndrome, but I honestly think they should just call it abuse syndrome, because it's not just narcissists that do this. It's also malignant borderlines, and it's also psychopaths, sociopaths. And in abuse syndrome, the abused follows the same pattern. Once the abuser starts working on the shame and starts doing the you guns and gets them to believe that broken mirror image of who they are and starts the devalue, the target of abuse is in a fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. So that's where that fallacy of time investment comes in. They're afraid of their abuser, so they try to kind of become their abuser. They feel obligated. Well, but they love me, and so I should love them no matter what, because it's noble to stay with somebody who nobody likes. I've heard that 100,000 million times. And that happens from empaths, because empaths are very kind and gentle, and we want to believe the best of people. And so we feel like, well, but everybody doesn't love them, so I need to show them what real love is. Well, you could show them what real love is until you're blue in the face, and they'll never get it, because there's no there there. There really is no there there. They don't get loyalty. They don't get truth. They really don't. They don't get happiness or joy, because what they keep doing is setting the bar higher and higher and higher and higher, and the poor target is like running this race uphill trying to meet that insane demand, and they never will be able to. So the self-esteem gets destroyed because you're never able to meet their demands, and they keep telling you it's you. They keep saying it's you. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the reason I'm not happy. You're the reason that we don't have any money. You're the reason that, blah, 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 blah. Even though they're the ones who are harming people and hurting people and, and spending money that's not theirs, etc. I find people don't want to be around me because I'm so traumatized by my ex that I cannot get over it, which in turn hurts my self-esteem even more. I try not to talk about it anymore, but it still comes up at times because out of the heart, the mouth speaks. To stop, I need to keep telling myself he is dead. I've also blocked him on Facebook, so I'm no longer tempted to look at him and what he is doing. I want him out of my head. Okay, I want you to write him a letter. I want you to write him a goodbye letter. This is what I tell my clients. And I have them do this with deaths, and I have them do this with drugs, and I have them do this with abusive relationships. So remember, it's an addiction. It's an addiction. Right here, right now, I'm telling you, it is an addiction. And I firmly believe that the way to help people get out of abusive relationships is to help them deal with it as if their ex-partner or whoever they were with, their abuser, was frickin' heroin or crack or meth, because it's the same feelings. Remember I told you it's like the love bombing. It creates all of those feel-good chemicals and then they go away and we withdraw and we're like, oh, I need to have it back. And then they're in our head even when they're gone. So I want you to write a letter. So this is one way to reclaim your power, reclaim your space. Write a letter. In the letter, you are going to do whatever was good about them. There might have been something good about them. There might not, but there might have been something good about them. So write it out, but don't get caught in that. Then I want you to go down to what was bad about them. What was the good, the bad, the ugly, and at the very, very end, the horrific, right? What is it that finally gave you the courage to say, peace out? So go down, do that. And at the very, very end of that, I want you to put in a goodbye, as in, this is it, no more. I'm raising the rent in my head. You are no longer allowed to live there rent free. Good fucking bye. Trot it out to the barbecue, read it out loud to the universe once, light it on fire, burn it. Let it go. Now, you may have to do this several times, and I've had clients do letters 27 or more times. I've had clients write fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you in teeny tiny little writing because they were that mad. So, several times. So you just get it out of your head, get it onto paper, take it out to the barbecue, read it out loud once, burn it, watch the words go wherever they need to. That's my suggestion for that. So once you get them somewhat out of your head and you're taking control back now because you're recognizing it's like, I have a right to not have to think about this person all the time. And part of the reason why we do that, why we continually bring up the image or we think about that ex all the time or that abuser all the time, is because that also releases endorphins and dopamines, not on the massive level that seeing them does, but it brings those feel-good chemicals up. I want him gone. Love to burn it. Yes, I like to burn things. I'm a little pyromaniac. I am. So when I have to write goodbye letters, I love to write it all out, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrific, goodbye in no uncertain terms. Burn it. Take your power back. Let it go. And you can, spit at it when it goes off. I mean, and you do it as many times as you need to. Some people do it 27 times. Some people do it once or twice and they're good to go. It just depends on what you're working through. And it also depends on how much you're able to remember, because remember, there is abuse amnesia that happens, the fog, right? The fear, the obligation, and the guilt. So difference between guilt and shame, okay? Guilt is when we feel regret for something that we truly have done, okay? Shame is when somebody else tells us that we ought to feel guilty for something they say we have done. Does that make sense? So guilt is internal, shame is external, and it is given to us by other people. So it's really important to sit down and figure out, am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling shame? What do I really need to feel guilty for? What do I really need to feel shame for? Is there any reason to feel shame? I don't think so. So, it's like you can feel regret and remorse, but why would you shame yourself? Because that keeps you stuck. If you feel regret and remorse, you have the ability to go, okay, well, I need to make amends. Let me do something different. But if you're stuck in shame, you're going to be stuck in shame. I made a few advances on my self-esteem and then slid back. Working on it made it stick. Yeah, you got to work it. You got to work it. You just absolutely, it's got to be a daily thing. It's got to be a daily thing. So start small. You can start small. You can start small by writing yourself a love letter. When was the last time any of us did that? Like, really. I mean, it's hard enough to get a romantic partner to do it, but write yourself a love letter, and conversely, also write what you survived. What did the abuser do to you? And then you stick that somewhere where you can see it so that when, not if, when the Hoover occurs, you're able to go, oh, yeah, they screamed at me all night long and kept me up. Oh, yeah, and then they called me names, and they said I was a loser, and they lied to me, and they made me get rid of my best friend, and they made me get rid of my sister and my brother, and they made me get rid. Do you see where I'm going with that? Stick that somewhere where you can see it. So in case, not when, or not if, when the Hoover happens, you can go, yeah, no, this person made me feel like doo-doo. I'm not going back to them. That's bullshit. So you also then want to write yourself a love letter. You want to get back in touch with who the hell you are. Now, what oftentimes happens is I'll have clients sit on my couch and go, I've lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I don't like because my abuser has told me what to like and what not to like, and I don't remember. I don't know who I am anymore. Okay, so this is when we need to start working on what did you used to do before the abuser? What did you love to do? Who did you love to hang out with? What gave you joy? What gave you happiness? What let you know that you were you? What did you do? What brought you happiness? What brought you joy? Do a love letter to yourself. Dear me, I love you, and here's why I love you. And you can go through the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the whole thing. And sometimes that's a little easier doing that love letter than it is looking in a mirror and making the eye contact and doing the self-esteem work. That's a good way to start, is writing it out. But and you may find that it's difficult to do that as well, because this voice in your head's going to pop up and it's going to go, oh my God, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why are you doing this? Oh my God, stop it right now. And that's when you have to confront this voice. So you've got to start working on separating out what is really your voice and what is your abuser's voice, or what is your original wounder's voice. Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it a caregiver? Is it a teacher? Is it your abuser? Is it a combination of all of them? And you have to start telling them to shut the fuck up, like in no uncertain terms. So thank you for your input. This is what I tell mine all the time. It's like, well, not all the time, but when it pops up. Thank you for your input. That was a fascinating and lovely and entertaining thought. However, shut the fuck up. Why? Because I say so. Because I'm the boss, not you. And then I replace it immediately with the polar opposite of whatever this damn thing has just said. So let's say it goes, oh my God, you're so stupid. Why did you just say that? Oh, wow, that was a fascinating thought. Thank you ever so much. Shut the fuck up. Why? Because I fucking say so. You know what? I have a right to say what I'm saying, so fuck off. That's what you do. You just replace it, replace it, replace it. It is like starting from ground zero. Absolutely. Finding yourself again is absolutely like starting from ground zero. Why? Because the abuser has intentionally come in and torn you down so that they could rebuild you in their image. But then once they do rebuild you in their image, they don't like what they see, so they start devaluing and discarding. Crazy? Yes, it is. So, okay. So you tell that voice to shut the fuck up, you replace it with a positive, and you do that as many times as you need to. And you identify whose voice is that. That's not mine. That's not mine. Anything that says anything less than, I love you, good job, keep going, you're fabulous, you're wonderful, cheerleader. Anything less than a cheerleader is not you. It's not you. Guarantee it. It's not you. So anything that is mean, cruel, vicious, nasty, et cetera, you got to tell to shut the fuck up. Why? Because you say so, because you're the boss, not it. I'm the boss. And then you replace it with the polar opposite of what it said. So that's one way to start working on self-esteem. Narcissists, borderlines that are malignant narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths hate it when their partner starts working on self-esteem, or when their partner decides to go to therapy finally. So what they'll often do, it always backfires on them. What they'll often do is they'll tell their partner, well, I don't need therapy, you do. You're the problem. You're the problem. You're the problem. But then when the partner goes to therapy and starts working on their self-esteem, you can bet your sweet bippy two things will happen. One, the abuser will want to know everything that's going on in the therapy session, wanting to know what's being said about them because they're narcissistic. And or if the partner starts building self-esteem and getting healthier, they're going to demand that the partner quit therapy. Happens every frickin' time. Always backfires on them. All right, so Okay. Um, okay. So back to the question about, don't be afraid to talk about it. Here's the thing. You've been through a traumatic experience, but don't let the traumatic experience become who you are. I think that's another thing in self-esteem that often gets overlooked, is that when we tell our story, right, realize that it is a story. It happened. It's in the past. It's not who we are. It's what happened to us, but it's not who we are. And it doesn't mean that we're weak, and it doesn't mean that we're, less than, or we're anything other than the fact that maybe we had an insecure attachment because of our caregivers, and it left us vulnerable to an abuser. So don't be afraid to tell your story. And if family and friends are like, oh my God, I'm tired of hearing about this, then you need to maybe talk to them about why. It's like, is it because you're talking about it too much? Are you stuck? Are you not moving forward? Is it that they feel helpless? Find out what's going on and go to therapy. Get a therapist. Work it through with a therapist. And eventually you're going to want to stop talking about them and stop giving your power away, because they have no power over you anymore. It's like, it's like, I don't know if you remember the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie. I'm totally dating myself. God, I thought he was so hot. Anyway, in that movie, at the very end of it, Jennifer, I can't think of her name, but Jennifer, the little girl who, grew up to be a beautiful girl, but she tells the Goblin King, you have no power over me. We're done. You have no power over me. And that's what I want you guys to start doing with your abuser in that letter. At the very, very end of it, you have no power over me. I'm taking my power back. You have no power over me. Make that a really strong statement, because that's what we need to do. We need to take our power back from our abusers and let them know, hey, you can't manipulate me anymore. You cannot harm me anymore. You cannot lie to me. You cannot gaslight me. You cannot make me believe that I am you. Yeah, I love that movie too. Anyway, so yeah, therapy is huge, because remember, family and friends don't always understand, because, I've been doing this for like 12 years, I'm going on 13 years. And it's amazing how many therapists don't even understand. So it's really important to get with a good therapist and recognize that family and friends may be overwhelmed. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to help, and that makes them feel helpless. And that's probably why they don't want to hear it. So what does real love look like compared to an abuser? Okay, compared to the abuser's version of what real love looks like. Okay, real love is kind, always. It is compassionate. It is gentle. It is patient. It is sweet. It is allowing that person to have time away. There's been study after study about how constantly being together actually is very, very unhealthy, but that's what abusers need, because they're trying to control. So an abuser's version of love is all about manipulation, control, guilt, shaming, blaming, projecting, things like that. Real love does not do that. Real love does not isolate from family and friends. Real love does not take away hobbies. Real love does not demand that you tell them everything that goes on in your therapy session. Real love does not demand that you side with them all the time. In fact, they did a study on what to do if you're caught in the middle between two friends and there's a disagreement. You can take the Switzerland view, but you have to make both sides heard. You have to hear both sides, and you have to let them know, okay, I hear both of your sides, and I am choosing to be Switzerland and let you two work it out yourselves. That's the healthy thing to do. But what abusers do is they will throw the target into the middle. They will pit themselves against a family member or a friend, and they will demand that that target take a side. And if they don't take the abuser's side, you can bet there's going to be hell to pay for the abuser. And because of the fear, the obligation, and the guilt, the target of abuse is so likely to just side with the abuser. It's sad, because then, it's like the family member and the friend is left going, what the fuck, dude, but it's because of the fear of the obligation and the guilt. So real love is patient and kind and gentle and accepting and what's the word I'm looking for? Non-conditional love. It's unconditional love. It's unconditional. So now let's caveat here. That does not mean that the person gets to get away with murder and you just go, oh, that's okay. I love you. Forgive you. I have unconditional love for you. Whatever. No, that's not it. Unconditional love means you're not trying to control them. You're not trying to manipulate them. You're not trying to hurt them. You're not trying to isolate them. You meet them where they are. So, oh my God, she said I shouldn't bat an eye, and no matter what I felt, I needed to take her side, no questions asked. Yeah, no, sorry, because, everybody's wrong sometimes, myself included, and I would hope that my partner, John, would, tell me, would say, yeah, Chris, you're wrong on this, and I would be like, oh, okay, all right. I'll go make amends now. That's what a healthy person does. An unhealthy person is like, I'm always right and I never make mistakes and I'm perfect and da-da-da. Because remember, narcissists and abusers must be perfect all the time, even though they're the least perfect people walking the face of the planet. I was raised by a narc mom and emotionally distant dad. I married an emotionally distant narc. I left him to take refuge with my twin sister, who just raged at me, drove a fork into the tabletop near me, and kicked me out for being crazy for the third time. I believe she's a narc too. I'm safe for now, thank God, but self-esteem is in the gutter. Okay, so other esteem, self-esteem. So when we have an insecure attachment style, we look to other people to build us up. So insecure attachment styles are often looking for outside people to tell them that they're okay, right? So it's super important not to rely on other esteem. So other esteem looks like this. So here's the person, here's you, and you're looking for that person to build you up. But what ends up happening is if this person goes away or is cruel or is mean or does their abusive BS, you're going to go ka-thunk, right? So we got to start working on self-esteem, which means that inner talk. How are you talking to yourself? Are you kind to you? Are you gentle to you? Or are you shaming yourself, blaming yourself, making yourself wrong, making everything your fault, because that's what abusers do, and it sounds kind of like that's what's happening in that family. So super important, get with a good therapist, start working on self-esteem. The Self-Esteem Workbook by Schiraldi. Love it, live it, do it. And the thing I love about it is that it covers everything. It covers everything from mental, emotional, physical, eating, sleeping, the whole thing. Self-esteem is not a fixed point in time. You can have great self-esteem in one area and crappy self-esteem in another. So for instance, you could have great self-esteem in your intellect. You could know you're very, very, very bright, but you may not believe that you're very, very attractive, or vice versa. And so you want to work on all of it. You want to make sure that you are healthy self-esteem, that it's balanced, that you have a good thing. And this is where people get freaked out. They're like, oh my God, that's selfish. Oh my God, that's narcissistic. If I say nice things about myself, I'm being a narcissist. No, 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 no. Narcissists also need outside approval. Different than people with an insecure attachment style, though. Insecure attachment styles are trying to build themselves up so that they feel safe and secure and etc. Narcissists are doing it for the ego. And the ego is huge in narcissists, and the ego is an illusion. So it's the bullshit that the narcissist puts forward, like, I'm wonderful, I'm great, I'm smart, I'm this, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, I'm so great, I'm the best in everything, I have the best ever of everything, and I am the best, and da-da-da-da-da, because they're trying to get people to buy into their illusion, their bullshit. So other esteem is faulty, because you're relying on somebody always telling you the truth and always being there, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you want self-esteem, where you're on your own ground and you're telling yourself that you're a good person. You're telling yourself that you like you, that you have worth, that you're awesome, that you're worthy of a healthy relationship, and that you don't deserve to settle, and that you are able to have a healthy relationship. I mean, do you see where I'm going with that? So it's the positive self-talk. What are you saying to yourself? Are you kind and gentle to you, or are you mean and vicious and cruel and nasty? Are you kind of getting on the bandwagon with the abuser and kind of beating yourself up, kind of thing? So Self-Esteem Workbook by Schiraldi. Now, do the love letter to yourself. What is good about you? What do you love about you? Mentally, physically, emotionally, and otherwise, and then read it out loud. It's so funny. I had one client, it just cracked me up. They did it like a Civil War letter. They were like, can I write it like a Civil War letter? I'm like, sure, go ahead. My dearest Alicia. And I'm like, oh my God, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. It was awesome. And it was totally written in the style of a Civil War love letter. So anyway, get creative. have fun with it. Do it in verse, do it in, a haiku. I don't care, but just do it. Make sure you point out what is lovable about you, what is likable about you, what is good about you, because our abuser has tried to make us believe that nothing is good or likable or worthy or loving or kind or gentle or whatever. So yeah, the abuser's version of what a relationship with love is, well, I love you, therefore I'm jealous. And the jealousy is proving that I'm loving to you. No, wrong. Jealousy speaks to an insecurity. It speaks to morbid insecurity. It speaks to somebody who's very immature. And that is not a sign of love. That is a sign of immaturity. That is a sign of insecurity. And it does not mean that they love you. It means that they're insecure. But they will tell you that it means that they love you. I'm controlling you for your own good. I'm doing this for your own good. I'm pushing this family member or this friend away for your own good. Bullshit. So yeah, true love does not do that. True love encourages friendships. True love encourages alone time. True love encourages you to have your own life and do your own thing, and to work on your self-esteem, and to go to therapy. If that is what is going to heal you and make you better, you're with a good person. If they encourage the therapy, they either go with you or they're, willing to work the workbook with you, and, they're not keeping you up at 2 o'clock in the morning screaming at you and calling you names and things like that. Do you see where I'm going with this? So, okay. So mirror work. Let's talk about that. Once you are able to overcome this, right? Get rid of this nasty negative stuff. Thank you for your input. Shut the fuck up. Replace it with a positive and start doing kind things. I want you to catch yourself doing things right. Think about this. If we do 99 things right and one thing goes wrong, what do we usually think about? Yeah, that one thing that went wrong. I want you to stop that. You need to change your thinking. You need to go from thinking about the things that are going wrong to what are you doing right? What is right about you? Because abusers love to tell you everything that you're doing wrong, because you can never be right. You're always wrong. You're wrong. Okay, hold on. I'll get to that in a second, Lynn. Hang on. Okay, so I want you to start doing what's right. Okay, and I want you to start reminding yourself. So in the morning, when you wake up, I want you to go use the bathroom, wash your hands, whatever. Go to the mirror. I want you to make eye contact with yourself if you can. If you're not to that point yet, then write yourself the love letter. But if you can make eye contact with yourself and just say, hi, I'm really glad to see you. Have a good day. That's it. That's all I want you to do. I want you to start there. Start small. Start with baby steps. Then you can add to that. You can say, hi, I'm glad to see you. Have a great day. And it's okay for you to be right. Give yourself permission. You give yourself permission. So whatever it is the abuser said, lied to you about, I want you to undo it by doing the polar opposite. Give yourself permission to be right. Give yourself permission to be happy. Give yourself permission to go hang out with your friends. Give yourself permission to love yourself. Do you see where I'm going with that? So there's that. And at night, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to come home at night, get ready for bed, do your thing, go to the mirror again. As you're getting ready, to go to bed, like the last thing before you go to bed, I want you to look in the mirror and go, hi, good to see you. Here are 3 things you did right today. Super important. Super important. Sometimes when people start doing the mirror work for the first time, they will burst into tears. You're going to have a lot of strong emotions because you're going to have all of this stuff from your past. You're going to have the insecure attachments pop up. You're going to have the abuser stuff pop up. And it's all going to try to stop you from working on you. Don't let it stop you from working on you. Seriously, don't let it stop you from working on you. You, above all others, are worthy of your own time, love, and attention. So part of self-esteem is unconditional love, and that means for you first and foremost. And we don't do that. We have a tendency to be like, oh, no, it's narcissistic and it's egoistic and I need to take care of other people. No. You need to take care of you first, because if you don't take care of you first, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else. So you've got to take the time to love you, to be kind to you, to be compassionate with you. And what I like for compassion is the Tonglen meditation. And the Tonglen meditation goes something like, may I have peace. May I have freedom from suffering. May I have all that I need. Food, shelter, companionship. May I have peace. And you do that until it feels natural. And you can do that as you're drifting off to sleep. May I have peace. May I have freedom from suffering. May I have all that I need. Food, shelter, companionship. May I have peace. And you can add in, may I have enlightenment. You know, that kind of thing. It's like positive stuff, positive stuff, positive stuff. Take the time to fill your own pitcher up, your own battery, recharge your own battery, because narcissists won't charge it. That's for damn sure. And if the narcissist is gone and they're still in your head, that's not going to recharge it. You need to punt all that stuff out and start working on you and have compassion for you. Does that make sense? Okay. So running out of time. Holy cow. So I just got a hold of Richie Grannon this week, and he and I are still planning on doing our lecture in Phoenix. We don't know where or when. He's waiting to hear from a family member that we're waiting on to find out what's going on. As soon as we find out the information, I promise you, I will let you know. I also got a hold of Taryn up at the Bradshaw Mountain Inn in Crown King. And as far as I know, the yoga weekend is still a go for August 25th, 26th, and 27th. I will be presenting there as well. And I will be talking about whatever mental health topics you guys want to talk about. So there is that. The show is going forward. It looks like we have almost 100 people signed up to come see Richie and me. So we're going to have to definitely find a big venue. Also, if you have nursing students, medical students, psychology students, etc., please let them know that we are going to be doing this show. I think it's really super important that we educate as many in the profession as possible, because not a lot of counselors understand mental health issues as far as, I mean, they understand mental health issues, but they don't understand the personality disorders. They don't, because we didn't get trained in it. We really didn't. Everything I know, I've had to go out and do the research myself and teach myself. So anyway, that I think is that. So to wrap it up, in order to work on self-esteem, you've got to work on the shame. You've got to work on that attachment style. If your attachment style is insecure, you're going to stay with an abuser. You're going to stay in an abusive relationship. People with a secure attachment don't stay, and they don't put up with the abuse. People with an insecure attachment have a tendency to stay and hope that the person will change. The person will not change. That does not happen. Leopard does not change its spots. Abusers do not change. They do not get better. Narcissists, malignant borderlines, and sociopaths do not change. They get worse with age. And as they realize that their manipulations are working, they become more and more abusive. It does not ever get better. Okay, so get rid of the shame. So you got to start working on the shame. So the way you start working on the shame is you got to work on the original abuse or the original neglect. You got to work on the attachment. And that also means that you have to simultaneously work on the self-esteem, so that when any of these thoughts come up about, it's me, I'm flawed, I'm inherently bad, I deserve to be abused, blah, 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 any of that stuff, you got to go, wow, that was a fascinating thought. Thank you for that. Shut the fuck up. Why? Because I say so. I am not bad. I am a good person. I did not deserve to be abused. Nobody does. And I deserve to be treated with respect. So you counter it, counter it, counter it, counter it, counter it, always. Okay, I cannot think of anything else. So does anybody have any last minute questions before I wrap this up? Going once, going twice. Okay, next week's show is going to be on toxic parents and toxic grandparents. This should be a really interesting show, because what I'm going to be talking about is parents who engage in parental alienation. So in other words, there's a divorce going on, you're leaving your abuser, there's kids involved, and now the abuser is using the kid as a pawn, and they're trying to make the kid think that you're the bad guy, and they're, smearing you to them, basically. So how to deal with that, how to cope with that, how to help your child, what to do when the toxic parent starts being their buddy instead of their parent and starts trying to use bribes to get them to like them better. That happens too. That's also part of parental alienation. So we're going to be talking about toxic parents, toxic grandparents, grandparents that try to take custody of kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get your questions on parallel parenting together. So this is for all the people going through divorces or leaving a narcissist and there's kids involved. It's going to be parallel parenting, not co-parenting, and I'll explain why next week. Okay, guys, great session. Thank you so much, session. You know what I mean. Great, great talk, great questions. Thank you so much. I hope I answered your questions. Now, you can contact me on YouTube. You can see me on Facebook. You can leave me questions. I'm apparently on Twitter, and I believe I'm also on Instagram. So if you have questions, get a hold of me through one of those avenues. If you have something you want me to talk about, that you can't watch the show, but you want me to talk about it for this coming week, which is on toxic parents, leave the message for me. I'll get to it. I can't think of anything else. All right, guys, good to see y'all, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.